Leicester, a city that celebrates its multi-ethnic or multicultural heritage. It's the 10th largest city in the UK, with more than 329,000 people. A city where diversity is regarded as their major strength.
So the first time I said, I want to celebrate Diwali and Eid party. If we have Christmas party, why can't we have they refused. But slowly things begin to work. The landscape has changed. What it is, there is more acceptance on behalf of the host communities. They were very good that time as well, majority of them, they accepted people. And now the landscape, Leicester has become the most diverse and multicultural city.
Leicester's a very diverse city. In fact, it's one of these so-called minority-majority cities where the ethnic minority population exceeds the indigenous population.
Leicester is the first city in the UK where the white population is now a minority. We also have a road called Narber Road, which was recently described as the most ethnically diverse road in the whole of the UK. We have Polish restaurants next to African shops, next to Greek cafes, next to you name it. We have a whole plethora of different countries of the world, all within a 1 or 2 mile radius.
During these 40 years, I've seen lots of changes in Leicester. When I first arrived here in 1972, it was just before the influx of East African Asians into the city, which added to the diversity of Leicester. And Leicester now is one of the most multicultural cities in Europe.
It's been my home for all of my life, and I feel a very close connection to this city.
पहले तो कुछ अर्सा में पता नहीं था, फिर आहिस्ता पता लगा कि वहाँ भी एक एमडी हैं, वहाँ भी एमडी साहब हैं, वहाँ भी कोई हैं, तो फिर आहिस्ता आहिस्ता हमने मिलना शुरू किया. लेकिन ग़ालिबन 80 में हमारा पहला सेंटर पहले ऑर्गेनाइज्ड जमात में हुई.
Mr. Muhammad Ibrahim Khokar Saab was voted in as the first president of the Leicester Jamaat. Ibrahim Khokar Saab remained president for about 2 to 3 years until 1983, when my father, the late Mirza Muhammad Ikram, became the president of the local Jamaat.
We used to say our prayers at Ikram Sahib's house on Fridays. We didn't have any facility for daily namaz, but we used to say Jummah at his house, and we often reflect on the blessings that flowed from that for his family.
Various community centres were used for prayers and other Jamaat activities, but the Jamaat always had a desire and a need for a prayer centre where all Jamaat members could gather for regular prayers and meetings.
In the early 90s, we started looking for our own place. And in 1994, we managed to locate an ambulance station that was for sale on Avenue Road Extension in Leicester. And we went and had a look at that place, and it seemed ideal.
When he purchased the mission house, as it was then, I remember remarking to him that surely, this is far too big for us. I think we were about less than a dozen families. And I said to him that, it was much greater than we'd ever need. And he turned around to me and said that one day this mission house will be too small for us. And I looked at him rather bewildered, thinking, well, how can that be?
2 years later, the newly purchased site was blessed with the visit of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih IV.
We were very blessed in 1996, 13th of January 1996, when Khalifa Rabi Rahimullah came to Leicester for a question-answer session that was held at the mosque there.
It was a magical experience. It was an enchanting evening.
My father passed away that same year in November, and Mr. Salim Ahmed, who was the acting president for a couple of years before that, was the president after that in 1996. Mr. Salim Ahmed, he remained the president of Leicester for about 10 years until 2006. During that time, the Jamaat flourished. A huge number of families came to Leicester from other cities as well and from other countries also, because this is the natural thing that happens when you have your own centre. In 2002, Leicester held the Majlis Khudam al-Ahmadiyya charity walk at Rutland Water, and it kind of put Leicester on the map also with regards to the rest of the UK, because obviously a lot of people from all over the UK visited Leicester during that time. In September 2006, about 8-9 months after I became president, we were appointed our first missionary. Maulana Ghulam Ahmad Khadim Saab came to Leicester. He was appointed the first missionary for Leicester also.
When we was using as a Salah Center in year 2006, the Tajneed was almost 170. By the grace of Allah, within this 8-9 years time, Jamaat has increased in this city, in Leicester city, and by the grace of Allah, our members, they are well united, and they always respect Nizam Jamaat, and they have the deep love with the Khilafat Ahmadiyya, and this is the source and key of success.
We were looking for our own place, and we needed to find our own place because our numbers were increasing and the facilities were getting tighter.
Although it was a big hall, but it was not meeting our needs. All the time the ladies, there was a problem, and there was a little space for the ladies upstairs.
And the amount of space that previously was adequate for both men and women no longer became enough for women alone. And that shows you the extent of progress. I have to say everyone has made a fantastic effort in keeping things together through very difficult circumstances. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
Amin.
Amin.
Please be seated. Please be seated.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We will begin this evening's proceedings, as is customary in Islamic tradition, with a recitation from the Holy Quran. And I would like to ask Mr. Abrar Ahmed Beg to recite a few verses of the Holy Quran, please.
Assalamu alaikum. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم واذكروا نعمة الله عليكم وميثاقه الذي واثقكم به إذ قلتم سمعنا وأطعنا واتقوا الله إن الله عليم بذات الصدور يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين لله شهداء بالقسط ولا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم على ألا تعدلوا اعدلوا هو أقرب للتقوى واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون وعد الله الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات لهم مغفرة وأجر عظيم
Could I request Mr. Salim Ahmed to come and render the English translation, please?
Assalamu alaikum. The translation of the verses which you have just heard is as follows. I seek refuge with Allah against the accursed Satan. In the name of Allah, most gracious, ever merciful. And remember Allah's favor upon you and the covenant which He made with you when you said, we hear and we obey. And fear Allah. Surely Allah knows well what is in the minds. O ye who believe, be steadfast in the cause of Allah, bearing witness in equity. And let not a people's enmity incite you to act otherwise than with justice. Be always just, that is nearer to righteousness. And fear Allah. Surely Allah is aware of what you do. Allah has promised those who believe and do good deeds that they shall have forgiveness and a great reward.
Thank you very much. Beloved Hazur, Deputy Lieutenant, National President, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. I am Dr. Habib Ikram. I am the President of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Association here in Leicester, and I am the person that most of you have been liaising with over the past few months in preparation for this occasion. It gives me great pleasure in welcoming you all this evening to the inauguration of the Baitul Ikram Mosque, and we thank you in sharing with us what is truly an historic occasion for the local community here in Leicester. We have been waiting for this day a very long time, but what gives us even greater happiness and makes this day even more special is that we are honored and blessed to be joined by His Holiness Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, who is visiting Leicester for the first time. Just to give you a brief background initially, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community was founded in 1889 by Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian in India, who claimed to be the promised reformer of the latter days foretold by many religions. His mission was to revive the peaceful teachings of Islam and engender in people's hearts the love of God and the duty to serve mankind. Since its inception, just over 120 years ago, the community has spread to over 200 countries of the world. It rejects extremism and violence in all forms and preaches an ethos of peace, freedom, and loyalty to one's country. As far as Leicester is concerned, the first families arrived in Leicester in the 60s and early 70s. However, it wasn't until 1980 that the local branch was officially established. We used community centres, school halls, and people's homes to say our prayers and have our meetings. And this continued until 1994, when I came with my late father, Mirza Muhammad Ikram, who was the president at the time, to have a look at an ambulance station that had come up for sale on Avenue Road Extension. Well, the potential of the site was apparent, and with funds raised by members of the community, the site was purchased and has been our home from home for the last 20 years or so. At that time, we were merely 15 families. However, now we have almost 100 families here in Leicester, and so you can imagine space was getting very tight. So when the site next door to our mission house came up for sale, we felt it was a godsend. This mosque has taken a couple of years to build. It has been funded by the financial sacrifices and donations of members of the community. Indeed, it has been built by members of the community. We have taken being self-sufficient to a whole new level. And after today, we look forward to adding to the richly diverse, multi-faith area that is Clarendon Park, and pray that this mosque helps to not only serve the needs of our local community, but is able to build bridges and bring people together. Thank you. We have some guest speakers also before His Holiness's keynote address. May I first invite Mr. Simon Cole, who is the Chief Constable of Leicestershire Police, to say a few words, please. Thank you, Simon.
Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. Your Holiness, friends, thank you for the opportunity to join you for this inauguration. I'm glad that you mentioned the ambulance station. My grandparents lived in Adderley Road, and then they moved all the way to Craighill Road, which is, 300 yards perhaps. They would have remembered this place as an ambulance station, and it is really amazing what you have done and how you've brought yourselves together to transform it into something of such power. I think there are only a couple of things that I want to say. The first is this: 180 years ago this very month, the very first police officers stepped out from the Guildhall in what was then the borough of Leicester, now the city of Leicester, and went out on patrol. And they went out to patrol with local people and to work with local communities. And 180 years later, they would be really confused by the fact that we came here in a car, or perhaps on the railway, that we had a thing in our pocket with which we could speak to anyone in the world and find out anything about anything in the world. But they would recognise you as a community that works together for the betterment of members of the community, but also for the wider place that is Leicester and Leicestershire. I'm also struck that my grandparents, who would have remembered this place as an ambulance station, lived in a world that was so troubled that they had to dig a hole in their back garden and hide in it some evenings. And while sometimes we live in a world that is troubled, and sometimes we live in a world that is difficult, and my profession sees that probably as much as any in the room, I'm really struck that there is nothing that cannot be beaten by us all working together. And I think, I'm sure many other guests here tonight feel very privileged to be able to join you, to be invited to be with you. We are with you this evening very much, but we are with you in spirit every day of every week of the year. Thank you for the invitation. I marvel at what you have achieved together. We look forward to continuing to work with you for the good of this place, of Clarendon Park and the city of Leicester. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. And not only do we have the Lord Lieutenancy represented by Professor David Wilson sitting to the right of His Holiness, but we also have another Deputy Lieutenant, Mr. Riaz Ravat, and could I ask him to come and say a few words as well, please? Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. President of the Association, Deputy Lieutenant, Lord Mayor, High Sheriff, Your Eminence, ladies and gentlemen, friends. I'm deeply humbled to have been asked to say a few words here this evening as we come together to mark the opening of the Baitul Ikram Mosque here in Leicester. I congratulate everyone who has been involved in this project, which further strengthens Leicester's reputation for interfaith harmony. The diverse gathering here tonight is Leicester at its very best. I have known and worked with the Ahmadiyya Muslim community for many years. It is a proud and close-knit family which has an active global presence. The religious traditions of the world offer a blueprint for society. The Ahmadiyya movement displays an ethos rooted in the values of selflessness, peace, fair play, integrity, and entrepreneurship. It is a community which is contributing considerably to the economic, social, and political life of the United Kingdom. Despite its size, it is a community which is more than a mere thread on the mosaic of fabric which makes up our nation. For example, if you are suffering from toothache, we have a dentist in the house this evening. If you are in dispute with your employer or an employee, we have an employment tribunal judge available. Or if you are vexed with sections of the media, which is probably all of us in the room, we have a communication specialist available too. In fact, when I mention the media, of course, I completely exonerate MTA International, which is a fine and outstanding organisation, which is here with us this evening. In times gone by, a Nobel Prize winner and a former president of the International Court of Justice have been other notable children from this community. Whatever our religious or belief persuasions, the true sign of a society living in coexistence is one which not only provides confidence and sanctuary to its minorities, but one which also champions its minorities within minorities. I'm very pleased that His Eminence is here to grace us with his presence. Like his community, in the face of adversity, he has remained steadfast in his commitment to advancing peace here and around the world. With leadership comes responsibility, and I pay tribute to his efforts. Tonight we inaugurate the Baitul Ikram Mosque. The word Ikram can be understood as meaning respect or honor. When coupled with the Ahmadiyya motto, love for all, hatred for none, we then begin to understand exactly what this community stands for. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Riaz. Our final guest speaker this evening is the Right Honourable Keith Vaz, MP, Member of Parliament for Leicester East. So could I ask him to say a few words as well, please? Thank you, Keith.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Your Holiness, Mr. President, Chief Constable, Deputy Lord Lieutenant, other distinguished guests, it is a huge honour and privilege for me to be with you here on this evening. My wife Maria asked me what I was doing tonight when I arrived back from Morocco this morning. And I said, I'm going to the opening of a mosque in Leicester. And she said, but it's not Friday. And I said, this is a very special day, because although we will have emblazoned on our memories over the next few months the date, the 23rd of June, actually, the 20th of February is extremely significant for our city and the community. I was reminded when I came in here a few moments ago that I first addressed this community 30 years ago when I was chosen to stand as a parliamentary candidate. My friend Arthur Mirza was there, and he said when I first spoke to the community there were 16 families here. Today, of course, you all have demonstrated the marvelous success of your community, but also the very special nature of Leicester. All over the world, as the Chief Constable has said, there are troubles. In my country of birth, in the city where I was born, Aden, in Yemen, only yesterday, a hospital was hit and 22 people died. It is a country that is suffering from terrible poverty and a terrible civil war. That was where I first heard the azan, the call to prayer. Actually, it is probably louder in Ashby Street than it is in some Arab countries. But it reminded me how lucky we are to be in a city like this, where different religions can be practiced in total harmony and tolerance, where people of different races and creeds can live together, where we can be a beacon of hope. And as Simon Cole said in his eloquent address, we have to be united as a city and as a community if we are going to face the problems of the world. In the recitation, you talk about seeking refuge with Allah against Satan. And this mosque is not just going to be a refuge for those who pray, it is going to be a community centre open to the whole community to teach the true values of Islam: kindness, humility, and peace. And what we need to remember is that in the days and years that go on, as this mosque grows even larger than it is today, as the community grows, that we are, as the Deputy Lord Lieutenant said, a community that marvels. We are a mirror of the country, with different religions, with different abilities, with different skills and different professions. Let me say this finally to you, Your Holiness. Recently, I had representatives of your community come to give evidence to the Home Affairs Committee, which I chair in London. We're doing an inquiry into counter-terrorism, and the local MP for Kingston was very keen, James Berry, that members of your community came here. And actually, when they gave evidence, they spoke about the real meaning of the word caliphate. The Deputy Lieutenant talked about the media who have distorted this word as if it was something bad. But actually, they gave impressive evidence about how a caliphate operates in practice, with you as the head of that caliphate, able to ensure that the values that this community holds so dearly are expressed amongst yourselves and to the rest of the world. So your presence in Leicester this evening fills my heart and our heart with joy, because you have the whole world to choose from on the evening of the 20th of February, and you chose to come to Leicester. You did say to me, Your Holiness, that you were keen to visit the Narborough Road, which one newspaper described as the most multicultural road in the whole country. Actually, could I put in a bid for the Belgrave Road rather than the Narborough Road? Because my colleague Liz Kendall will want to promote the Narborough Road. The local MP here, Jonathan Ashworth, will want to, of course, promote Berners Street, but I have my bid for the Belgrave Road. So on your way out back to Kingston, I hope that you can come to see the Belgrave Road, and you will pass, as you pass along from Clarendon Park. I mean, who would have believed 30 years ago that we would have a mosque in Clarendon Park at an opening attended by the Lord Mayor of Leicester, mayors from all over the districts, the Police and Crime Commissioner, the Chief Constable, the Deputy Lord Lieutenant, really the good and the great, obviously not including the MPs who don't fall in either of those categories, all here to celebrate with you. And your presence is more important than anything else for us. It makes this a very, very special day. And I know that we're supposed to say that we are supporters of Leicester City, which we are, but today we are very firmly the supporters of Leicester United. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Keith, for those kind words. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the keynote address, which will be delivered by Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, who is the worldwide head of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. All distinguished guests, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Peace and blessing of Allah be upon you all. First of all, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you who have kindly accepted our invitation to the opening of our new mosque here in Leicester. Your attendance proves that you are open-hearted people who respect human values and who care for the feelings and sentiments of others. It is no exaggeration to say that these are values and qualities that the people of this city have displayed for many centuries. Indeed, for over 1,000 years, Leicester has been home to the people of various cultures and beliefs who realized the importance of uniting together and living in peace. If we look at the ancient history of this city, we learn that there were some wars or conflicts between the Vikings and the Anglo-Saxons. However, ultimately, they understood that living together in peace and security and protecting the rights of one another was in the interest of all people and mutually beneficial. When I was recently reading about Leicester and its history, I learned that the city's traditions of multiculturalism were not confined to the ancient past, but continue today. According to the 2011 census, Leicester remains one of the UK's most ethnically diverse cities. Indeed, I read that recently Narborough Road, though some of our honorable guests would like to name their roads instead. Anyway, but the city's history says that Narborough Road in Leicester was officially recognized as the most ethnically diverse road in the entire country. In my opinion, this should be considered as a badge of honor for the city and is evidence of Leicester's successful model of integration and inclusiveness. These are qualities that should never be forsaken or disregarded. As we are currently living in extremely precarious times, wherein much of the world is increasingly consumed by disorder and injustice, it is the critical need of the time that we promote and spread the tolerant values that this city has epitomized for so long. We must all work together. All work towards uniting society under the umbrella of humanity and seek to foster a spirit of mutual respect for each other's values and beliefs. Drawing upon this city's past history and experiences, it is imperative that the people understand that peace and security can only be achieved through love, tolerance, and mutual respect. Another quality of this city is that apart from the different cultures and ethnicities present, Leicester is also home to various religious and beliefs. I believe that this diversity is something that enriches your city and further increases its beauty and attraction. Indeed, the fact that so many people of different backgrounds are attending the inauguration of our new mosque further attests to the excellent morals and values of the people of Leicester. And so, with these words of introduction, I would now like to speak briefly about the true purposes of mosques according to Islam. It is said that there are already around 200 mosques or Islamic centers in Leicester. And so the word mosque or the building itself will probably not be a new thing for the local people. Nonetheless, we are extremely pleased that today, with the grace of Allah, the Almighty, Ahmadiyya Muslim community has been able to open its new mosque in Leicester. And I'm sure that where it will provide our members with a place of worship, it will also prove to be a beautiful addition to the existing mosques and places of worship in the city. In terms of its purpose, a true mosque is a place for Muslims to congregate together in order to worship the one God. Furthermore, it is also a place for Muslims to gather together to fulfill the rights of God's creation. Thus, where this mosque provides us with a place to worship God Almighty, it also presents us with a place to join together to work for the betterment of society and to serve humanity. In Islam, Allah the Almighty has drawn the attention of Muslims towards fulfilling the rights of all other people in accordance with how closely linked they are and the degrees of their relationship. In this context, I can say with certainty that the local Ahmadi Muslims will deem the neighbors of this mosque to be extremely close to them and will consider fulfilling their rights and needs to be of great importance. I'm confident that every Ahmadi Muslim who comes to worship here will not only seek to fulfill the rights owed to Allah the Almighty, but will also seek to fulfill the rights owed to the neighbors of this mosque and indeed in wider community. Thus, there is no need to fear this mosque because only sentiments of love and compassion towards our neighbors will reverberate and echo in every direction from here. Certainly, you will see for yourselves that our motto of love for all and hatred for none is not just an empty proclamation or a hollow slogan. Rather, it will become clear to you that we sincerely seek to live our lives according to this golden principle, as this is what our religion teaches us. God willing, each and every day you will come to appreciate the true beauty and magnificence of Islamic teachings. As I mentioned earlier, this city has a rich history of absorbing the people of different cultures and religions, and is a city where people have long united for the greater good of society. Most surely, Ahmadi Muslims will forever seek to uphold this noble tradition. In fact, rather than just uphold it, we will always seek to build upon those strong foundations and further develop these qualities of mutual tolerance and open-heartedness. According to the teachings of Islam, we will love and care for our neighbors and fulfill their rights in the very best manner. Islam has made it crystal clear to Muslims that their neighbors have great rights over them. Just as the Holy Quran stipulates the rights of a parent over his child, in the same way it designates that a neighbor has many rights. Muslims have been taught to love, protect, and honor their neighbors. Indeed, the founder of Islam, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing of Allah be upon him, once said that Allah the Almighty had admonished him so repeatedly about the rights of neighbors that it occurred to him that perhaps a person's neighbors would be included amongst the rightful inheritors of a Muslim. Furthermore, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing of Allah be upon him, taught his followers to like for others what they like for themselves. I believe that this simple yet magnificent principle is the key to establishing true and long-lasting peace in the world. This timeless proposition is as true today as it ever was in the past. Indeed, when I reflect upon this point, I realize that if I want others to treat me in a good way and with peace and security, then it is incumbent upon me to treat others in a like manner. As a Muslim, it is necessary for me to desire true peace for my neighbors. It is necessary for me to desire true peace for those living in my town or city. It is necessary for me to desire true peace for my fellow citizens. In fact, it is necessary for me to desire true peace for every person in every part of the world. The Holy Quran's definition of a neighbor is extremely vast and far-reaching and includes many categories of people, including travel companions and others. In essence, the true spirit underpinning the definition requires a Muslim to consider all of mankind as his neighbor. In chapter 4, verse 37 of the Holy Quran, Allah the Almighty has linked the rights owed to him with the rights owed to mankind by saying, "And worship Allah and associate not with him, and show kindness to parents and to kindred and orphans and the needy, and to the neighbor who is a kinsman and the neighbor who is a stranger, and the companion by your side, and the wayfarer, and those whom your right hands possess. Surely Allah loves not the arrogant and boastful." Therefore, Allah the Almighty has enjoined treating other people with respect, love, and kindness. This verse is all encompassing and proves that a Muslim is duty bound to serve humanity irrespective of color, caste, or creed. Indeed, alongside a person's relationship with Allah, every other possible relationship is included in this verse. This is why I said when Islam teaches Muslims to fulfill the rights of their neighbors and to fulfill the rights of their relations, it actually incorporates all of mankind. Indeed, the Quran does not merely require for different groups to live side by side, but rather it has actually established the rights of all people and all communities. Furthermore, contrary to the media's portrayal, Islam is the standard bearer for universal freedom of religion and belief. Thus, where Allah the Almighty has established the rights of Muslims to worship, He has also established the rights of all other religions. This is proven by chapter 22, verse 41 of the Holy Quran, where Allah has commanded Muslims to protect the places of worship of all religions. By virtue of this commandment, the early Muslims were granted permission by Allah the Almighty to defend themselves after years of sustained and brutal persecution by the non-Muslims of Mecca. But this verse makes it abundantly clear that permission was granted in order to defend the institution of religion itself, rather than just Islam. In short, the verse states that permission to fight was granted because the opponents sought to destroy all forms of religion. Thus, if the Muslim did not fight back, then no church, synagogue, temple, mosque, or place of worship in which the name of God Almighty was commemorated would remain safe. Consequently, based on Islam's true teachings, I consider that mosques are not only places to worship Allah the Almighty, but are also a means of serving mankind and fulfilling the rights of one another. Therefore, it is a duty of Muslims to live peacefully alongside others, and rather than oppose other religions or to harm their places of worship, it is the duty of Muslims to protect them. I think most of you will agree with me that if these teachings were genuinely acted upon, then we would come to see a world of peace and harmony. If these Islamic teachings were followed, then those people who claim that God or religion are the root cause of disorder and violence in the world would come to see the error of their views. Of course, there are certain so-called Muslims who are defaming the name of Islam by perpetrating the most inhumane cruelties and injustices. Any peace-loving person can only be horrified when he or she sees such barbarity and ignorance. However, let it be absolutely clear that such people are acting completely against the true teachings of Islam. Their actions are indefensible and entirely unjustified. Anyway, I am confident that following the opening of this mosque, the Ahmadi Muslims living in this area will come to manifest true Islam more than ever before. Through their conduct, they will shine a light on Islam's peaceful teachings. They will prove that Allah draws the attention of Muslims to fulfill not only His rights of worship, but of all His creation. They will personally illustrate Islam's beautiful and pious teachings. They will exhibit and love, compassion, and sympathy, exhibit only love, compassion, and sympathy for others. At a time when the world stands upon the precipice of this disaster, the need for mankind to join together and to strive for peace is more urgent and critical than ever before. We must unite in our efforts to promote peace and mutual understanding so that the world can be saved from that horrific destruction in the shape of a catastrophic world war that seems to be drawing ever closer by the minute. In the past, the people of this city came to learn the benefit of peace and tolerance after living through warfare and violence. Thus, I pray that the lessons of the past are enough for us to realize our responsibilities to safeguard our future. I pray that we recognize the needs of the time before it is too late and before we are once again engulfed by warfare and devastation. I pray that we come to understand the importance of striving for peace and the fact that our Creator, God Almighty, desires for all of humanity to live together and to fulfill each other's rights. At the end, I also wish to say to the Ahmadi Muslims who are living here that they should seek to portray the true teachings of Islam at all times. Their conduct and character should always remain exemplary. They should always remember that if they fail in their duties to serve others, then their worship will neither please Allah and nor will it prove of any benefit to them. Nor will there have been any benefit to having built this mosque. This mosque has been named as Baitul Ikram, the House of Honor. And so, where the people who enter this mosque will seek to show love, honor, and respect to one another. They will also seek to spread love, honor, and respect throughout the society at large. God willing, this mosque will come to be known as a beacon of light that illuminates its surroundings and will come to be known as a true symbol of peace in Leicester. May Allah enable the local Ahmadi Muslims to fulfill the true purposes for which this mosque has been built. Ameen. And at the end, I would like to once again thank all of our guests for accepting our invitation and joining us this evening. May God bless you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Holiness. We will end this evening's formal proceedings with a silent prayer, and I will ask His Holiness shortly to lead us in silent prayer. We normally just raise our hands and say a silent prayer. You are free to join us in any way you wish.
The silent prayer, please. Ameen.
I've been overwhelmed by the strong messages of peace and love and the beauty of this building, and it's another great contribution to the city of Leicester. The community here are wonderful representatives of Islam and wonderful messages of love and peace to all.
A lovely gathering of people from the local community, dignitaries, and Hazur spoke very eloquently about the importance of clearly people coming here and discharging their duty towards God Almighty, but also the local community. So it's very inspiring.
I thought it was actually very inspirational how he talked about mosque not just being a building but part of the community, and I thought it was absolutely excellent. It's been a real privilege tonight.
There's a lot of misrepresentation in the media and stuff about Islam, and I just felt like I learned a lot from tonight, just from what the Caliph was saying and just from speaking to people.
His Holiness produced a speech that I thought was outstanding in emphasising what the Quran really says about issues as opposed to how it's frequently spun. And so I think I speak for the whole of the top table tonight in saying that we found it both edifying, informative and hopeful for the future.
His Holiness made me think about how we go about doing our business, and about how, I would see policing as a force for good, and as a force for peace and making the world a better place. He was very spiritual and thoughtful in what he'd said.
He gave messages which were not only for Muslims or the Ahmadiyya community. The message was to anybody who'd see that message, wherever they are in the world. It was for mankind.
I thought it was so powerful, and I wish more people could hear it. I know he puts that message over wherever he goes, and it's a great message. It fits very closely with what we believe in Leicester, that it's important to learn from each other, respect each other, and make everybody welcome.